first of the Leadership Spotlight sessions. They'll be going on all week here at Basecamp from 12 to 2. So this one kicks it off. We're super excited. Thanks for being here. And for those who aren't familiar, Leadership Spotlights are part of Denver Startup Week, which we've learned is the largest free entrepreneurial event in North America. There's close to 200 events taking place around town under 4 different tracks: manufacturing, design, technology, and business. So we hope you get out and about and get to experience some of that stuff this week. We're here today at Basecamp, which is the hub of Denver Startup Week. And just to thank the partners that made this all possible, Denver Startup Week is brought to us by the Colorado Technology Association, the Downtown Denver Partnership, Comcast, and our friends at Chase. And Chase has specifically invested for the last 2 years in helping us create this space that we're in today called Basecamp. So thank you, everybody. So Leadership Spotlight Session number 1, Denver Startup Week 2014. Click. This session we're really excited about. We've got 3 brewers. Third one will be here shortly, from the Denver craft brewing community here today to talk about the business of brewing. And these 3 were selected specifically because they're each undergoing major expansions. We're going to talk about growth. And so I'm going to just kind of let each of these guys introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll come back around to some questions.
I'm Patrick Crawford. I'm one of the guys that started up Denver Beer Company. So me and my business partner, Charlie Berger, went to college together, put our heads together about 4 years ago. Charlie was a brewer ever since college and brewed at the Wind Coop and some places in the Midwest. And I loved brewing beer at home. I worked for Lockheed Martin doing some top secret satellite operation stuff. And Charlie and I got together. We had this idea to open a little brewery in Denver. And then we put our heads together, came up with some money and stuff. We can talk about that. And opened up in August 2011. So we just celebrated our third anniversary. And as of about a month and a half ago, we just started putting our beer in cans at a different building up in Sunnyside. So right now we have 2 locations, one on Platt Street near the big REI downtown, and then a canning facility up in Sunnyside.
Cool. Right.
My name is Brian Dunn, and I'm the founder of Great Divide, and we have been open since 1994, so we had our 20th anniversary this year, and we have 1 location, but we're working on a second one, and actually Charlie used to work at our place, as is typical in this industry. So anyway, that's the background for Great Divide.
Well, we forgot one important thing here, which is just
cheers.
Toast. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks for being here.
I'll give away for the best question, we can give away a beer.
Ooh, perfect.
Yeah, there's more beer down here if anybody wants.
Yeah. So, whoa. And you thought we were bringing the A-team today. So Startup Week, this is really about like ecosystems and startup communities. And what is it about Colorado and the beer community? Why does it seem to be so fertile for your industry?
I think it's a lifestyle thing here. I think that people live in Colorado because they enjoy the outdoors, they enjoy good quality of life, and I think that that sort of background has always embraced both good beer, good whiskey, good distilled spirits, good bakeries, good coffee. Just it's a lifestyle thing.
Yeah, I think there's been a great foundation laid by companies that like Great Divide that Brian started, and some of the big breweries up in Fort Collins really laid a great groundwork and got people educated about beer, which frankly made it a little bit easier for guys like us starting up 3 years ago. We had a big paragraph in our business plan when we originally started that talked about, it was like, what are our risks? And there's so many great breweries in the state of Colorado. Why why is there room for another one? And we said, well, you know, the craft beer drinker likes to try a lot of different beers, and these great breweries that have been here before us have really laid the groundwork to get everyone educated about drinking good beer, and made it easy for us to kind of slip in there and sell beer. It's like places like Silicon Valley, you know, everyone kind of
without
feeds off
getting
each other.
too much in the weeds, the kind of legislative climate in Colorado is different than other states.
Yeah, that's
that
true. The liquor laws here are fairly easy for a small business to get started, and what that means is that we sell our beer primarily through independent liquor stores. So we also sell a lot of beer through bars and restaurants. But for the off-premise business, the case business, it goes to independent stores, and that's a lot easier for us. When we come out with a new beer, we go up to Argonaut, we give them a sample, and the next day the beer's in there. As opposed to other states where it's primarily chain-driven, where you maybe have to go meet the corporate buyer at Safeway or Albertsons or King Soopers or Kroger or whatever it is, and they might carry a much smaller variety of our beers. So the independent liquor store setup here has had a lot to do with how independent breweries have grown.
So a healthy legislative climate can be good for business?
Yeah, absolutely. We took advantage of that. So in Colorado, you're allowed to be a manufacturer, a wholesaler, and a retailer, basically. So we took advantage of that and said, you know, we can manufacture a product and sell it right over the bar to people. So that was that's what helped us get going, is being able to sell beer by the pint for $5 when, that made the cash flow nice and easy for the first couple months to be able to fund different projects and stuff. So.
You know, you mentioned each of you mentioned your new facilities, and sort of one that just completed, one that's going to ultimately be a real kind of anchor entity out in Rhino. We all know that, but everyone in the kind of, I think the whole startup Denver Startup Week, you know, there is a lot of tech talk, and there's always talk about growth. And how does the beer industry, which is manufacturing, right? Like you as brewers are classified as manufacturers. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about when you think about growth?
Well, for us, it's a balance of how much equipment we can afford to buy and how much beer can go through that equipment and maintain our quality and sell it. It's a big part of it. To simplify it sounds kind of...
Well, I guess maybe where I'm coming from a little bit is, you know, Brian, you opened, 20 years ago now in, the ballpark neighborhood, and it's changed a lot of ways, and a lot of ways it hasn't. Did you picture this kind of trajectory for a Great Divide?
Well, I think when you start a business, all you can do, at least from my perspective, was make the best guess at where you're going to end up. And no, I didn't know where we're going to go, and my hope was we were just going to make it, And it was hard for the first 5 years. We barely made it. We really did. So for us, it's a factor of we're surrounded by 2 city streets, an alley, and a neighborhood that's not moving. So we have a 20,000 square foot piece of property there, and we rent 30,000 square feet of warehouse, but in about 2 years we won't be able to produce more beer there. So we knew that if the business was going to continue to grow, we needed a new place. There's just no other option to expand that place anymore. So we were just faced with having a business that would not grow anymore, which is unacceptable to me, or go out and start another one.
We hear a lot of talk about funding right now, and I think Denver, Boulder, Colorado is becoming and is that sort of startup hub between the coasts, and you're seeing a lot more companies being funded and IPOs, things like that coming, largely due to Techstars and some other great programs. I hear the word exit strategy, early on in a sort of a conversation about a company, and I just love your thoughts on exit strategies.
I think this goes back to the lifestyle thing for that Brian was touching on earlier. I love going to work every day and cranking through our issues and making beer and enjoy the camaraderie of all the employees. And so, half the reason I think I chose to want to be in the beer industry is because it's a lot of fun. And for me, I would definitely like to make owning Denver Beer Co. my career. And, pass it on to my kid, sell it. Who knows what's going to happen in 30 years. But for now, it's definitely about the lifestyle for me.
Yeah, when I started the brewery, I got into it because I like beer, and I really, really love everything about beer. How you make it, how you sell it. It goes with food. It's fun. It attracts great employees. The business is fun. It's a hard business. It's competitive, and it's a small business. We have 49, 50 employees, so I think that still qualifies as pretty small. And we have lots and lots of challenges, but like Patrick, I love going to work. I actually really do, and I feel lucky to be in the business. And so to directly answer your question, we don't have an exit strategy because we're not forced to have one, because I like what we're doing, and the business is growing. Why get out?
It's great. We talk a lot about built to last, and I think that that mentality is evident here. So that's cool. We'll come back to a couple. Yeah, we're gonna have some Q&A just before we wrap up for sure. So Katie, be sure to give us a high sign when we've got bubble. You probably get asked this sometimes. Is there a bubble for the beer industry, craft beer industry?
There may be. I don't know when it's going to come, but there's definitely a lot of new breweries coming in, but we're still growing. We grew 25% last year. We're up 20% this year. Colorado, we're still up more than that. So, it's crowded. There's no question, but I think if you make great beer, you're going to sell it. There's just enough interest in craft beer and things that are produced locally that I can see there to be a lot more growth still ahead of us.
Yeah, it's a timely question for us because we just, took a big risk and, leveraged ourselves out there pretty good, building a big facility to can beer in. But I think there's definitely a lot more breweries coming in. There'll definitely be more competition. I hope that doesn't drive prices down, which could be a problem for everyone. But if things maintain the way they are, I think people that run a sound business and invest for the long term, I think will probably do fine. Just like any industry where that is competitive, people that run their business as well succeed, and people that make mistakes, will have their setbacks and stuff. But
in the context of sort of the national craft brewing scene, which we get a glimpse of as it convenes here, every fall in October for Great American Beer Fest. How do your particular expansions, stack up, and not in a competitive sense, but here in Colorado and here in Denver, both Great Divide and Denver Beer Company, what you guys have invested in has been pretty significant. Is this happening in other cities and other states?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of breweries, at some point, we're manufacturing, so at some point you cannot put out more beer. So you either expand a current facility if you have adjoining land. If you don't, you have to pull up and start a new one somewhere else. So for us, we decided to put one here in Denver. A number of breweries are now putting facilities on the East Coast. If they're kind of West Coast brewers, they're starting facilities on the opposite coast. We're not that big. For us, the most important thing is just to put more beer out around here. So that's why we decided to do it here in Denver. Welcome. Hi. Did you show up this
ladies
late for
and
work?
Gentlemen?
Sometimes, yes.
Brian, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Brian O'Connell. I'm the founder and I call myself Chief Beer Officer at Renegade Brewing Company. We just telling a little bit about our company, or? Yeah, sure. So we're 3 years old. We were founded in June 2011. We are a packaging brewery. We have 5 beers that we put out in cans, and then we do a very limited bomber release series where we put out one 22-ounce bomber beer per quarter. We are in the middle of expansion as well. We are building a second brewery right now that will be about 5 times the size of our original location. So we're doing that so that we can expand our production and distribution across the entire state of Colorado. Right now we're limited to just front range distribution.
We saw one of the sort of facts from Renegade that you guys had expanded or grown 400% in what period of time?
Yeah, since our first year, we're currently up 400% since our first year of production.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's a very rapid pace. It's great to have that growth, but there's certainly been a lot of challenges that we faced with that, just trying to keep up with that pace. And I feel like since I opened the doors 3 years ago, it's been pretty much nothing but expansion and trying to figure out how to make more beer and hiring more people, and which is great, but it's a constant state of playing catch up, is what it seems like.
It was pretty interesting. We get to office a couple blocks down from Brian and Renegade, and I had the opportunity to swing by when it was one of the first canning runs that you guys did with mobile canning. And so, gosh, that seemed like, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, that they had the van pulling up and a canning machine like rolled out on dollies, and then they're putting beer in it in the canning line. Then they popped it back in the truck and moved on. And now you're on to bigger and better.
Yeah, we started with mobile canning systems out of Longmont, and they would store all the canning materials for us, bring the line to us. Essentially, it worked like a lease, so we would pay them for their services and for the use of the line. We outgrew that a while ago, but we just were able to get our own canning line about 4 months ago, which we have squeezed into our current facility, waiting for our new production facility to be finished, which they tell me is in a month and a half, and we'll see about that.
Brian Dunn, what's different today? What's changed, or what's grown? 20 years now you've been at it.
Yeah, I think. Hello.
It's working.
I think the big thing is the market has changed a lot. I mean, when we opened, we had to work really hard to sell good beer in good restaurants. The common feedback that we would get then is, "Oh, we're a good restaurant. We don't sell beer. We just sell wine. Oh, and we have Heineken." So that was it. And I think it's changed now to every good restaurant that opens, every bar that opens has craft, and people have been a lot more open to things that are locally produced. So be it beer or coffee or bread, I think people are much more open to locally produced, locally owned businesses than they were 20 years ago.
Has there been any changes in like the actual manufacturing process or the technology in making beer?
No, there hasn't. I think we've all learned a lot, and as our businesses grow, we get better people and we get better equipment. But no, basically the process has been the same for many years.
And amidst all the sort of expansions and growth and new breweries, what's the craft beer community like? Is it pretty collegial? Is it obviously there's competition out there, but
no, it's awesome. I mean, people. It's a very close community. I mean, this summer I took a bike ride from Boulder to Durango with guys from Left Hand, Avery, Boulder Beer, Ska. So 15 of us took a bike ride from Boulder to Durango for over 5 days just to hang out. So, I mean, these are guys that I've known for 20 years, and unfortunately, we're all so busy we don't catch up with each other enough. So we have to take a bike ride to do that, to hear what's going on. But yeah, it's a really interesting industry in that we share information, we share equipment, and sometimes we share people, we share ingredients. It's interesting. It's quite close.
For Brian O'Connell and Patrick, one last question, then we'll get to some Q&A. When you guys started out, who did you look to? Who are some of the brewers or breweries that you talked to, worked at?
Inspired by?
Yeah, inspired by.
Yeah, that's a good question. We kind of, it's only natural to look at who else is in the industry when you're starting a business. And we looked around the state and said, these guys do this great. There's things, we looked at, all the great things that Great Divide did and said, let's do things a little bit different. Let's make our tap room a little bigger. Or we looked at the company culture of New Belgium. We kind of, they're really good at advertising their company culture. So, we kind of tried to look up to that a little bit. We look at breweries like New Glarus in Wisconsin that sold, let's see, about 100 times more beer than we did last year, and they sold it all in Wisconsin. So, we look at different
They like
breweries
beer in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Who's from Wisconsin? Well, there you go. They're in front row waiting for those beers that don't get finished.
Yes, I definitely had those breweries that I looked up to and wanted to emulate somewhat. There were breweries around town that have helped me out and have still helped me out. Kevin DeLang over at Dry Dock was a big help to me when I was getting started up. Shared pretty detailed information with me that most people wouldn't share with an upcoming competitor. Brian Dunn's brewery has been great to me. In the early days, was over there getting yeast and having them do tests on my malt. And Breckenridge Brewery is right down the street from me, and they've done all sorts of lab tests for me, and also helped me out with yeast, and generally getting me out of a jam that I got myself into. Kind of we're lucky here in Colorado to have so many breweries that have established the culture here and that are still so willing to lend a hand. And I'd be hard pressed to name a brewery that's been in Colorado for a long time that hasn't helped me out in some sort of way. So it's a great culture.
Cool. Well, I think we got a few minutes left, so we're going to take a couple questions. We had one over here. You just want to...
I'm sorry about Brian. You talked about the struggles early on. You've been around 20 years. About 5 years in, you saw, something changed. What was that allowed you? What did you see that kind of you got over the hump a little bit?
Two things. One, we got a little bit bigger, so we were able to be sustainable financially instead of, I think we lost money till year 6. At some point. But I was the founder, and I was the guy that was not getting paid for a long time, too. So, we were paying for malt and glass and paying employees, of course, before I ever got paid. So I was willing to not do that. But I think the big thing that changed is the market. I think local. We just started selling more beer, and I was on the street not every day, during those first 10 years selling beer, and eventually it started clicking. It just took a while. It took a lot of foot traffic to get bars and restaurants and liquor stores to carry the beer. A lot of beer dinners, a lot of staff education, and that's one of the things that's changed. And Chuck asked that question, but we don't have to explain to people what an IPA or what a stout is anymore. But we did, and for the first 5 to 8 years, constantly telling people what beer styles were about, and now people know that. So it's gotten quite a bit easier. But there's just a lot of, I would say, education largely.
1970, I'm driving from here to back east with a case of Coors, and the only thing I made was just Coors then, and it was very visible in my trunk in the back seat window. And the guy was filling up my tank. He says, "I'll tell you what, I'll take that case of beer." instead of you paying for the gas. And I knew the math, and it was a heck of a deal for me. And so to them, it was a craft beer because it was only sold in the state. So Colorado has a whole lot of sex appeal for about anything I think you guys can make, especially if it goes out of state. Are you going out of state a lot, or?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think Colorado has a lot of sex appeal, and I think Denver has a lot of sex appeal. That's one of the reasons we named our brewery Denver Beer Company, was to try to leverage some of the sex appeal of this awesome city. But we don't sell any beer out of state. No. Yeah, we plan to maybe in the next 5 years. That'd be great. But in the next 2 years, I don't see it happening. But
Brian, where are you guys?
We do. We sell probably about 40% of our beer out of state. So Colorado has a great name for craft beer and for lifestyle, like we've already talked about. So yeah, there's no question that Colorado beer sells well out of state.
We're in state only also right now. Similar to Patrick, we'll look at it down the line, but for now we're just Colorado focused.
We got time for one more question.
Can you talk a little bit about marketing strategy?
Let's see. We don't do any print advertising. We definitely do social media. I mean, Facebook, Twitter is big for us. It's a really great way to communicate. Everybody knows that. We used to do a newsletter. It first started out being print, so we stopped doing that a while ago. So actually, we do an online, an emailable newsletter. So for us, the name of the game is just to get the word out. We spend a lot. We have salespeople that do a lot of events, a lot of beer dinners, a lot of staff education. So for us, we want people to taste the beer and hear the Great Divide story. So another thing that's big for us in terms of marketing, I guess, would be to have a tap room, is to get people to visit the brewery. And when they get there and have a good time or whatever, people connect with, I think, a facility quite well. So we spend quite a bit of time just getting people into the tap room, or at least embracing them to come.
I'll take a crack at that one too. One of the things that we first did that I found really helpful when we started was we did this little association thing that was like, if you were a car, what kind of car would you be? If you were a movie, what kind of movie would you be? And if you were a sport, what sport would you be? And so we kind of said, if Denver Beer Co was all those things, we'd be like a competitive frisbee, ultimate frisbee game, or a competitive kickball championship like Subaru. And that's kind of what we came up with. And so everything that we've done about that brand, we've kind of tried to relate to those few ideas. And if we have to describe our brand in one word, we use the word fun. And so when it comes from our everything print, our social media, kind of all of our outreach, we try to think about those the competitive kickball Subaru driving fun guy. And that's kind of where we try to take our marketing. So.
Yeah, we did a pretty similar exercise to that at Renegade. We basically sat the whole staff down and we said, if Renegade was a person, what would that person look like? What kind of car would they drive? What would their job be? How old would they be? What kind of activities would they do? And then we basically wrote that person's biography, and we tried to think of Renegade as its own individual person. And that was important for me to separate it from me as the founder, so that people didn't associate Renegade with me. Renegade is its own thing that involves a lot of people putting it together. And we use a tagline for our beers that's offensively delicious. And we put it on all of our cans, and it's really, that kind of resonates through all of our marketing, that we want to be somewhat shocking, we want to be somewhat different, but we also want to put out a really high-quality product that resonates with people.
Well, we're going to have to wrap this one up. These guys are probably going to be floating around if you have some other questions. But first of all, thank you. And on that sort of last question, it's fun for me to listen to that, because at our company, Something Independent, one of the things that we really think about is kind of this intersection of lifestyle and commerce, and what you're doing and where you're doing it here in Denver, I think, is really reflective of that. And to hear the marketing approach to it is something that we think and talk about too, is invest in the analog. And that's about getting people in the tap room and really just facilitating good people in a room and good shit coming out of it. So, everybody, round of applause for these three guys. So, Denver Beer Co., their new facility is open up at 44th and Jason. Brian and Renegades will be open in a month if you listen to the contractor. And maybe a little
Ours
longer.
is going to be at First and Santa Fe. Our current facility is at 9th and Santa Fe.
And Brian's waiting to release when his will be open.
It's a couple years away.
But it's going to be big.
Slightly larger project than ours.
Yeah. No, congratulations. You know, the business of brewing in Denver and in Colorado is big, and these guys are leading not only the city and the state, but they are brand ambassadors, to your point. As people think about Colorado, they start to learn about our beer and realize there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. So thanks for being here. The next leadership spotlight is coming right up, and I'm going to hang here for a second to introduce a friend and colleague, Dave Bacon, who's going to moderate the next session. Thank you.